The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 or 2 at a time by bargaining carefully with the grocer, the vegetable seller, and the butcher. Della counted the money 3 times, $1.87. And the next day would be Christmas. There was nothing else for her to do but sit down on the little worn sofa and cry. So Della cried. After a while, she dried her eyes and looked around the small apartment. It was not a grand home. The rooms were simple, the furniture was old, and the rent was $8 a week. Near the entrance was a letter box that was too small to hold a letter. Beside it was an electric bell that did not work. On the door was a card with the name Mr. James Dillingham Young. Once, when Jim had earned $30 a week, the name had seemed proud and important. Now Jim earned only $20 a week, and the name looked rather grand for such a modest apartment. But whenever Jim came home, Della called him simply Jim, and she loved him very much. Della went to the window and looked outside. A gray cat walked slowly along a gray fence in a gray yard. Everything looked cold and dull. Tomorrow was Christmas, and Della had only $1.87 to buy Jim a present. She had saved for months. Still, this was all she had. She wanted to give Jim something beautiful, something rare, something worthy of the man she loved. Suddenly, Della turned away from the window and stood before the mirror. Her eyes were shining. She quickly let down her hair. Della and Jim had 2 possessions of which they were very proud. One was Jim's gold watch. The watch had belonged to his father and, before that, to his grandfather. The other treasure was Della's hair. It was long, thick, and shining. When she let it fall freely, it flowed down past her knees like a dark brown waterfall. Della stood looking at it for a moment. Then her face became pale. A few tears fell onto the worn carpet. But she quickly put on her old brown coat and hat. With a determined look, she hurried out of the apartment and down the stairs. She walked quickly through the streets until she saw a sign. Madame Sofroni. Hair goods of all kinds. Della climbed the stairs and entered the shop. "Will you buy my hair?" she asked. Madame Sofroni looked at her carefully. "Take off your hat," she said. Della removed it, and her beautiful hair fell down around her. $20, said Madame Sofroni. "Give it to me quickly," replied Della. For the next 2 hours, Della searched through the shops. She wanted to find the perfect gift for Jim. At last, she found it. It was a simple platinum watch chain. It had no decoration, no unnecessary design. Its value came from the beauty of its material and its quiet elegance. Della knew at once that it was made for Jim. It was strong, dignified, and honest, just like him. The chain cost $21. Della paid for it and returned home with 87 cents. Now Jim would no longer need to look at his watch secretly, because the old leather strap attached to it was worn and unattractive. With this fine chain, he could take out his watch proudly anywhere. When Della reached home, she began trying to repair the damage done by generosity and love. She heated the curling irons and carefully styled her short hair. Soon, small curls covered her head. She looked at herself in the mirror for a long time. "I hope Jim will still think I am pretty," she whispered. At 7 o'clock, the coffee was ready. The pan was hot on the stove, waiting for the meat. Jim was never late. Della held the watch chain in her hand and sat near the door. Then she heard his footsteps on the stairs. For a moment she became nervous. She whispered a little prayer. "Please, let him still think I am beautiful." The door opened, and Jim stepped inside. He looked tired and serious. He was only 22. but he already carried the responsibility of supporting a family. He needed a new coat, and he had no gloves. Jim stopped just inside the door. His eyes were fixed on Della. The expression on his face was difficult to understand. It was not anger. It was not surprise. It was not disappointment. He simply stared at her. Della ran toward him. "Jim, darling," she said quickly, "do not look at me like that. I had my hair cut and sold because I could not let Christmas pass without giving you a present. My hair will grow again. You do not mind, do you? I had to do it. My hair grows very fast. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let us be happy. You do not know what a beautiful gift I found for you." Jim looked around the room slowly. "Your hair is gone?" he asked. "Yes," said Della. "I sold it. You do not need to look for it. It is gone. But it is Christmas Eve. Be kind to me because I did it for you. Maybe the hairs on my head could be counted, but no one could ever measure my love for you. Shall I prepare dinner?" Jim seemed to wake from his silence. He put his arms around Della, then he took a small package from his coat pocket and placed it on the table. "Do not misunderstand me," he said. "There is no haircut that could make me love you less. But open that package, and you will understand why I was so surprised." Della eagerly tore away the paper. Then she gave a cry of joy. A moment later, her eyes filled with tears. Inside the package was a beautiful set of combs. They were the combs Della had admired for months in the window of a fashionable shop. They were made of fine tortoise shell with jeweled edges. They were the perfect color for her beautiful hair. Della knew they were expensive. She had often looked at them without any hope of owning them. Now they were hers. But the hair they were meant to decorate was gone. She held the combs close to her heart. "My hair grows very fast, Jim," she said softly. Then Della suddenly remembered her own gift. She jumped up happily and held out the platinum chain. "Isn't it perfect, Jim? I searched all over the city for it. Now you will want to look at your watch 100 times a day. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks with the chain." Instead of giving her the watch, Jim sat down on the sofa and smiled. "Della," he said gently, "let us put our Christmas presents away for a while. They are too beautiful to use just now. I sold the watch to buy your combs, so perhaps it is time for us to have dinner." The Magi, as you may know, were wise men. They brought gifts to the child in the manger. They were the first to give Christmas presents. Because they were wise, their gifts were wise too. And here is the story of two young people who were not wise in the ordinary sense. Each had sold the most valuable thing they owned to buy a gift for the other. Yet among all who give gifts, these two were the wisest, for they understood the true meaning of giving. They gave not from wealth, but from love. And wherever people give with love and sacrifice, they are like the Magi.